is our ultimate vision and direction for PowerBuilder? So when I look around, everyone says, oh, we got to do .NET and Visual Studio and this and that. When I talk to PowerBuilder developers, some of them have left PowerBuilder and they're using Visual Studio, and they say it sucks. They say that, I see people using data window. They pull out the data window from PowerBuilder, and they're trying to rig it into Visual Studio. And that data window is a client-server data window. It's not an N-tier or internet architecture data window. So technically, it's like that architecture is a little bit obsolete. It's not the way new projects are developed, and they're still trying to rig the data window into there. And I've talked to developers that say, when they use Visual Studio, they're always scripting. They don't use the Visual Painter. So I'm like, why is it called Visual Studio then if you don't visually develop? So PowerBuilder is, in our mind, PowerBuilder is not necessarily just about PowerScript, and we are committed to continuing supporting PowerScript as a scripting language. But to me, what language you script to doesn't matter fundamentally. What matters is there's a PowerBuilder way of doing things that makes life easy for everybody. It makes the tool very productive. And it's really centered around the data window. I've heard people tell me that PowerBuilder is an IDE around the data window. PowerScript is a language around the data window. That's really what we're looking to do. We're looking at, hey, okay, the .NET framework, Microsoft has tons of resources invested in building up the .NET framework. There's no point for us to duplicate that. What we're going to do is bring the things that PowerBuilder does better than Visual Studio and .NET, bring that on top of this framework, and make it the fastest and easiest way to build business applications. This is a slide that I presented actually about 2 years ago. When we were talking with SAP Takeover PowerBuilder, we already had this vision of, we saw this problem in the market and we knew where PowerBuilder needs to go. So we're looking to bring the benefits of PowerBuilder on top of a .NET stack, and we wanted to deploy everywhere. So initially, we're focused on the desktop. That's the core PowerBuilder, but we want these to also run on Android and iOS and so on. We want to be able to run on Linux servers, and that's why we made the strategic choice to go towards .NET Core rather than .NET Framework. So that made us, we would have to, develop the least common denominator. The .NET Core is a subset. But then, when we develop and design our solution this way, you're not going to be tied to any single OS long term, both on the client side and on the server side. And the other thing we're going to be clear thing driving our vision is PowerBuilder should be developing N-tier applications. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to discontinue client server. If we want to directly develop a desktop app and call it a database, that's fine. But in our minds, when we look at new projects, we think developing an N-tier style architecture is the best way. And that's why when people say client server is dead, I'm like, you're absolutely wrong. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. N-tier is also, you have a client, you have a server. And HTML is one option for a client, which in our minds, we believe that's the wrong client to use for a business application. That's data intensive, you're doing lots of processing. It's so clunky and slow. Using a native user interface is a much better client UI to connect to the server. So it is client servers. Client server 2.0 is what N-tier is. And if you look at your phones, you use that today. Do you prefer to use your browser on your phone, or do you use a client server app? So the server has changed. The server is no longer a database. The server is a web application. The server doesn't talk to your database. We've introduced another layer in the picture, and that's actually what PowerBuilder is good at. It's good at developing data stuff and business logic. It doesn't deliver the sexy UIs. It's a good tool for a business app. So we believe PowerBuilder and the data window and the data store and all those objects can add a lot of value in developing that business application layer on the server side. We're looking how to leverage all of your existing investments and move that. And one example of that is what you just saw. You have these data windows. There's a lot of investment in data windows. You can move that easily to C# if you like. And that's sort of the general thing that's going to drive us. So these are the 4 key sort of pillars. What's going to keep driving every version and every decision we make is going to be driven by these 4 things. And of course, how to bring the value of PowerBuilder to .NET. So now that I talked about the vision, that kind of tells you where things might end up in 2020, 2021. Let's talk about the more midterm. So what's going to come at the end of next year, and what's going to come during 2019 and until the end of 2019. So our focus for that period of time is to help move PowerBuilder into developing .NET desktop cloud apps. What's a desktop cloud app? A desktop cloud app is similar to PowerBuilder. You develop desktop apps today. But a desktop cloud app is not directly talking to a database. It talks to a .NET layer of business objects, like the C# web APIs running on Microsoft IS. And Microsoft IS, or whatever, now they run .NET Core, you could run on a Linux .NET server. The .NET server will talk to the database. But the way you develop these apps is the way you've pretty much developed apps in the past, except that you do need to consider that end-tier layer. So there's specific features we need to bring to enable that. One is in R3, we're going to introduce a JSON data window. So what Chris demoed was R2. R2 is going to give you the ability to call a web service, but it's not so easy like today with PowerBuilder. You say PowerBuilder is a stored procedure data source. You're just directly piping it. And the JSON data window is going to do that. It's going to let you, instead of stored procedures, be developing whatever you're developing on the server side in whatever language, C#, Java, whatever. And it's going to pipe it directly into the data window, including retrieves, updates, transaction management, all that stuff that you use for data window is going to be there. And also, we've added Git and SVN. The next one we'll add is TFS. So you have native integration with Team Foundation Server. So the second thing that's coming out is PB 2018. And what I'm listing out are the key highlights, not all the feature set. These are the key features that are going to enable you to develop .NET Desktop Cloud Apps in PowerBuilder. So in 2018, it's going to be a little bit of what Chris showed you. Inside the native PowerBuilder IDE, you're going to be able to script in C#. You're going to be able to use the PowerBuilder objects that make PowerBuilder development so easy. And we've enhanced the IDE. Maybe, I don't know if you picked up on that. There's collapsible code blocks. There's IntelliSense. It's the stuff people kept saying, improve the PowerBuilder IDE. We're first bringing that to the C# target, and then long-term, we're looking at how to bring that also when you're scripting in PowerScript instead of C# to potentially enhance that. So you'll be able to develop C# server projects. So if you're developing, if you saw in that demo, we had the app calling the web service, and then we had the web service developed in C#. So the app calling the web service was just PowerScript, and you're going to continue to develop for desktop cloud apps. The client is using PowerScript, running on PBVM. That part is not yet going to be running on .NET Framework, but it's going to be an end-tier architecture, so it has to be driven by your .NET server, and that .NET server is going to be scripted in C# and .NET Framework. And what that means is you can do everything you can do in .NET, you can do everything you can do in C#, you can use tons of the open source stuff that's available, plus you can do all the good stuff PowerBuilder does, the data store and a connection object and transaction object and so on. And then for PowerBuilder 2019, we're going to be introducing a new target type called desktop cloud. So this desktop cloud is similar to the current desktop target you have, but there's two key things about the desktop cloud that's different. When you use that target, you need all of your data windows to be end-tier data windows. This app is not going to want to directly call your database. It needs to run over HTTP, HTTPS. So it's a different type of so it's client server 2.0. You have an option to do client server 1.0 in PowerBuilder and client server 2.0. So the other key characteristic of the desktop cloud app compared to the desktop app you have today is the whole installation update process is going to be the experience you have like on your cell phone. You throw a URL, the app installs. Once it installs, it's always up to date. So when you have a change to your PowerBuilder app, you deploy it to the .NET server, and the next time the user runs the application, it's going to automatically update. And that solves one of the big reasons I hear customers want to go to web is actually they're just trying to make it easy to get the app onto the user's machine and keep it updated. It becomes a nightmare to update lots of different clients. And so the desktop cloud app is going to give you that option. The other thing we're going to be introducing is a new UI framework. So that's going to allow you to develop a very modern looking user interface and give you new controls. Because PowerBuilder's strength has always been, I think, not in UI, but more around the data. And so we want to stiff up that. But we're also going to retain the current classic UI framework as well. So you can build the UI however you want, but you have to choose one or the other. You're not going to be able to mix two UI, and it's going to look funny if you did. Your button looks like this and the data one looks like that. So these three versions together will allow you to develop .NET Desktop Cloud Apps with the ease of PowerBuilder, and by the end of 2019, you're going to have everything that you need. But if you don't need Desktop Cloud App, you're just looking to do some server-side stuff. People have traditional client-server app that they're trying to call web services. You might be able to do that on RTE. You don't need to wait until December 2019. So we started doing Appy on Web to help people get onto the web, try to help move apps into your architecture, try to make the deployment easy, offer an alternative to Citrix. And we found actually some customers that use it even though they don't want internet access. They actually have just an office with database and local area network, but they still want Appy on Web. And that's because Appy on Web delivers benefits even for an on-premise app. But of course, if you want external internet access, you definitely want to go to Appy on Web or a desktop cloud app. So a desktop cloud app, even for an on-premise, is going to simplify the deployment of updating the devices of clients. And the other thing is that once you introduce a .NET server, you can start to move some of your code to the server side. You don't have to necessarily do it all in one shot, but you can. And by moving it to the server side, that allows you to reuse code. Now, that was, I think, one of the key attractiveness of EA Server. Start putting your MVOs instead of client-side, server-side. You can have multiple PowerBuilder apps you develop. One does this and one does that. There can be a shared layer of stuff. And that way you're not maintaining redundant projects over and over again. And so that's another benefit if you start moving towards this architecture. And the other thing is it's integration ready. So with our stuff, it's different than how EA Server did the server side. We're deploying a C# web APIs. So if you start going towards a desktop cloud app, even though it's an on-premise application, all of your business logic is out of the gate. It's ready to be integrated with any other system. So tomorrow someone else comes and says, hey, we need to integrate your system or do this, this, and that. You don't even need to do any extra coding. Your application is already ready to be integrated. And it also offers .NET interoperability. So the C# web API is running on the server. It can do anything .NET can do. It can be, this code can actually be developed even in Visual Studio if they want, but then it's going to be writing a lot of code. It won't be visual. You won't have the data window designer. So we think people will prefer to use PowerBuilder to maintain these, but that source code can be handed to a C# developer, and they could continue making changes and enhancements to the application. So it's going to give you that interoperability, but there's a gotcha. So these are all the great things. The catch is it's going to be significant to get there, because you have currently a client-server application. The architecture for most customers is not fully partitioned, where all of the business logic is in a business layer and the UI is here. Okay. So to fully partition an application, it can be an undertaking. It's nowhere going to be near the effort to rewrite an application from scratch. But still, people are looking at something like, one click, and by tomorrow it's done. So if you're looking for a faster solution, I'll talk about that. Appy on Web is why we created that product. It's a good solution for people that really want to get their app into this architecture in a short time. And the two are not mutually exclusive. You can start with Appy on Web, and over time, you start moving more and more of your business logic into the server layer. And once you move everything to the server layer, then you can have desktop cloud app be your client side rather than Appy on Web or traditional PowerBuilder or whatever client you're using. So that's leading to this one. You have these apps. Let's be practical here. The desktop cloud app is great if you start a new project, because from the beginning you'll be designing it where you're not putting your business logic in the window or a button, and you're using the C# web APIs. But for an existing project with a PowerServer web add-on, you're going to save money, and also you don't need to wait for the desktop cloud app that's coming in 2019. You can start today. By the end of this year, we have the PowerBuilder 2017 R2, you have the RESTful web service, you have the TLS 1.2, and we have a refresh of Appy on Web 2017 coming out that also supports the same RESTful and JSON things. And you'll be able to start right now getting your projects to that. So the first step is you use the Appy on Web solution to deploy your existing application to a .NET server. You don't need to spend any time to take any business logic and move it to the server. It's just very fast and easy. Mike had presented their experience with it. But what that's going to get you, even though the app is not partitioned out at all, it's going to get you that you're running on a .NET server runtime. So as you want to add, like let's say in 2018, you want to add a C# web API, start moving some of these processes to the server. it's already ready. Your app can consume that because the whole Appian web application runs on a .NET Server runtime. It also solves the deployment problem. You don't need to wait for a desktop cloud app in 2019. Appian Web allows you to run your application in a browser, or we offer what's called an installable web app. It does not require any browser. It's a similar experience to the desktop cloud app I talked about. It's an app that's resident on the device, that's installed over the internet, and it constantly updates itself. You don't need to manage it. And Appian Web typically can automatically convert 80% of the code. This is a rough number, but in general, most people in a couple months can, depending on the size of the app, you can generally get it over. So with that said, it's not going to be one click, one day, but it's going to be less effort than what is required to go to a desktop cloud app. And it's definitely going to be 10 times or more less effort than if you're going to rewrite from scratch. So the next phase is, I would say, use Appian Web, very quickly get your application on a .NET runtime, get rid of your installation headaches, and then slowly start to take the most important business logic in your application. It's very critical, and start to move that into the C# Web API you saw. Start moving those data windows there, and everything's around the data window, so actually the way you wrote your PowerScript, it closely matches to the way you would script the C# Web API anyway. It's just you have to use the C# syntax. But the way it's coded is PowerBuilder style. And so you start moving some of those things, and you don't need a fully partitioned application. So very quickly, you have kind of a hybrid end here. It's not a very strict academic end-tier architecture, but the key things that matter, that need to be on the server, you have it. And so that you'll be able to do by end of 2018. You don't need to wait until 2019 to get started with that. And the last step would be is look at optimizing your UI. So, it's a nice to have, but my recommendation would be once you've solved your deployment problem, then try to get the key things onto the server, and then improve the UI so your users like to use your application and makes their job easier. So there's a few things you can do. One is you can optimize existing UI. You saw it in Informaticon. They did their demo, and their UI definitely looked nicer than some other PowerBuilder apps I've seen. So I'm not saying it's like sexy eye candy the way you see some Apple stuff, but it was definitely a clean user interface that people don't struggle with. How do I use this application? So there's plenty of things you can do to optimize your UI in PowerBuilder without having to wait for the new modern UI framework that we're bringing out. And there's some sessions that I really strongly encourage you guys to attend to kind of learn about how to do that. And then the other thing is, you could obviously, when PowerBuilder 2019 comes out, you could consider to use our new UI framework to then develop a more modern-looking interface. And all of this is going to be performed in PowerScript. Okay? So it's not C# and it's not .NET. You're coding in PowerScript and modifying your existing UI or using our new framework. Thank you so much. If you have questions, you can feel free. I'll be around the conference, and I'm not doing any sessions at all. So you can grab me and we can chit-chat about what's coming online. Thank you very much.